Good evening, brothers. We'll give it just one moment to allow attendees to roll in, and then we'll get started with tonight's webinar. Perfect, brothers. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight on the webinar of how to host a virtual pig dinner. We have a great panel tonight representing 5 different chapters, 5+ different chapters actually. So they're going to be able to share a lot of experiences, knowledge, and advice and suggestions with you. I want to start off with some introductions. Brothers, my full name is Dionysius Proto-Papadakis. I'm the current Director of Graduate Engagement for Phi Gamma Delta. I graduated from Appalachian State University in 2017. So this webinar is in partnership with the Section Chief Executive Committee. We've been working together to put this content together for you all. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start introducing the panelists. Bob, I'll turn the mic over to you first.
Thanks, Dio. My name is Bob Boothby. I'm the current section chief for Section 4 North, which includes Toronto and University of Western Ontario. I've been involved in a few of these virtual pig dinners, and we've learned a few things. We can't say we've got the perfect recipe, but we wanted to share with you a few ideas and some things that worked well and some things that didn't. So glad to be a part of this this webinar this evening.
Thank you, Bob. Dana?
Yeah, good evening, brothers. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dana Hess, 1986 graduate, the Rho Alpha chapter, Virginia Tech here in Blacksburg, Virginia. We had to do our virtual pig with about 4 weeks notice last April there. And yeah, definitely got some good lessons learned. Like Bob said there, we're going to look forward to sharing with you what worked and what didn't. And I've had the good fortune to be to several different Canadian virtual pigs since that time. So looking forward to tonight there, and please ask questions there. That's why we're here. We want to impart as much good stuff as we can for how to keep your virtual pig going well and uphold all the traditions.
Absolutely, thank you, Dana. Charlie, we'll go to you next.
Hi, brothers. My name is Charlie Eklund. I'm a graduate of the Western Ontario chapter. I'm currently the Purple Legionnaire of the chapter, and I'm looking forward to being able to share what we were able to do and hopefully give you some advice as to where we thought we might have come up a little short and where we can help you avoid that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlie. Yatin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Yatin Sood from the University of Alberta. I'm currently the president of the Alberta graduate chapter. And we just held PIG back in October, and looking forward to seeing what advice we can give you here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Brian?
Hey guys, Brian Hall. I'm currently a junior at Appalachian State. I'm the current vice president of the Beta Nu chapter, and I held the position of the Pig Dinner chair last semester, and glad to share my story about how we had a success with the virtual pig dinner.
Thank you, Brian. And last but not least, Bill.
There we go. I may be having some technical problems here, so bear with me. My name's Bill Roberts, Alpha Sigma 1975. I've been a Purple Legionnaire. I've also done a couple summers teaching at the Leadership Academy. The graduate chapter at CHI, which is Union College. We've had at the chapter folded, but we have a good graduate chapter, a lot of guys, and we had a great virtual pig dinner last year with about 90 participants. So I can kind of give you an idea what we did. I also have some ideas of some things that can help the undergraduate chapter. And, you know, it's good to make the grads feel all warm and fuzzy. So that's some of my suggestions I'll have for you this evening.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill.
Did I come across, Bill?
That's perfect, Bill. Thank you. So, brothers, just to cover what the webinar format will look like tonight, I please encourage you to utilize the question and answer feature. Basically, once we get to the panel Q&A, those questions will be asked in the order they're received. I'll provide about a 15 to 20 minute briefing on best practices, combining a lot of what I've seen from other chapters and virtual pig dinners I've attended, as well as I gotta give a shout out to Dana, for his help with a pretty great outline and guide to virtual pig dinners that he's helped provide. We'll go to some panel success stories, so allow each of these brothers to share their experiences, also elaborate on some of those best practices. And lastly, we'll finish out with the Q&A, and I'll showcase some resources that are available to you as you start planning this virtual pig dinner. So brothers, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with some of these best practices. First, we're going to focus on communication. Of course, brothers, every chapter does handle pig dinner planning differently. However, there are a few things that stick out and really make a pig dinner successful, especially with the event planning aspect of it and the communication of it. First and foremost, early communication is best. As most of us know, graduates do have a working schedule, and they need some time to plan accordingly, and plan around that. What does the frequency of the communication look like? Well, brothers, it really depends how early you get the notice out. We do encourage to get, for a virtual pig dinner, get the notice out at least 1 month prior to the event. If you do so, the frequency really could be on a weekly basis, just the encouragement of that, but also the encouragement of RSVPs, as you continue promoting the event. Of course, with it being virtual, there might not seem to be a need for RSVPs. However, that may dictate the platform that you utilize for the webinar itself, or for the pig dinner, I should say. So brothers, as you do plan, encourage brothers to RSVP, that way you at least have a head count, because there are, capacity limits to some of these platforms. Now, brothers, we're looking at the channels of communication. Don't restrict yourself. I know, at least in my experience, it's easy to get caught up in where most of the graduates might be, which could be a Facebook page, or it could be, I know some of the younger chapters have group meets with all their graduates. However, stick to the resources that you have available to you, some of which are first and foremost, the most important one, email. Most chapters do have an internal database. If you do not have a record of all your graduate brothers, please contact me. I'm happy to provide that information for you. Some other examples include those Facebook groups, posting about the upcoming pig dinner, cold calling those brothers. That could also cause a chain reaction amongst your grads. Utilize social media, post about the upcoming event. Brothers will have once they see it on different mediums, that it might be more enticing for them to join as well. Ultimately, develop a communications plan, that's clear and succinct. Brothers, this plan will not only outline those mediums that you utilize, but will outline the frequency, what type of communication, and ultimately, especially once the Zoom link is created, what that'll look like in the distribution of that Zoom link. Of course, there is the pig dinner chairman. I highly suggest that the pig dinner chairman works with not only graduate brothers, but also the communications chair of the chapter to continue promoting this event in every way possible. But utilizing the graduates more so, a lot of chapters for a regular pig dinner utilize team or decade captains. This could be pledge class captains, brothers that have those relationships built and are able to really share the word, and promote the event firsthand. So it's important to try to utilize these brothers. They may be a part of some of those groups, with other graduate brothers that might not necessarily have a connection to the chapter directly. It's important, as you communicate the event, advertise the speakers. In some cases, brother, I know I come from a younger chapter, and in some cases, just the name recognition for some of those grads might be what attracts them to that event, right? But it's also important to highlight brothers that are receiving recognition. Brothers, this includes owl recognition, so your silver and your gold owls. This also includes donation recognitions. If there's a big house corporation project that's underway, if there's a brother who just had an incredible lifeline or career accomplishment that you all want to give recognition to at Pig Dinner, this is the opportunity to showcase those. I think the beautiful thing about a virtual Pig Dinner, brothers, aside from the fact that it's relatively easy, is the fact that it creates opportunity. When I say opportunity, it's an opportunity to re-engage lost graduates, especially in this COVID era. A lot of brothers might not be willing to travel. They might not be willing to risk their health to attend an in-person pig dinner. So it is an opportunity to send them a link, and brothers can enjoy the comfort of a pig dinner through, their living room or their desk at home. So it does create a new opportunity for us to re-engage some of those lost graduates. And also, brothers, the beauty of a virtual pig dinner, at least for the attendees, is it doesn't necessarily cost anything to attend. However, I do encourage you, as a graduate, or as an undergraduate promoting your event, encourage brothers to provide contributions in lieu of that in-person cost. This could help kind of suffice that void and fill that void, but ultimately it also helps the undergraduate chapter realize that the graduate support hasn't necessarily left because the in-person pig dinner and the traditions are gone per se. Suppose as we move on to the program and presentation, as you can see, one of our panelists, that's a picture of him hosting his virtual pig dinner, and I'm sure he'll touch on his success. But brothers, the importance of this first bullet point is to keep the traditions alive and the program of the pig dinner there. Just because it's virtual doesn't mean we need to omit too many things per se. But it is important to keep a very organized, well thought out, and normal pig dinner programs. Of course, there's going to be some added extras and some pieces that could be omitted due to the virtual capabilities. But what a regular program does look like ultimately is, a doxology, bringing in the pig. I will kind of pivot on some of these points. Suppose in the bringing in the pig, don't be afraid to use a virtual pig, to continue the traditions. I know I've seen cases and examples of brothers photoshopping, the oldest brother in attendance and the younger one on the pig, accordingly, to keep that tradition alive. The ad astra listing, the exiles toast. It is important, brothers, and we'll hit on the pre-recording and importance in the next slide. However, for the exiles toast in particular, have a backup plan. As we might see tonight, and as most of you have seen through Zoom, the technology doesn't always want to work with us, and it is easy for the technology, us to have lapses in technology, and the Wi-Fi to go out. So if you have a pre-recorded exiles toast, there's always that backup plan in case there are technological glitches or errors. In the program, you also have to keep the various reports. So the undergrad chapter report, the graduate chapter report, headquarters report, the house corporation report. Brothers, it's important because that is just part of the tradition of pig dinner. Brothers want to be made aware of what's happening with the chapter. And of course, awards. It's important to continue the awards traditions. Of course, you may not be able to formally present the award in person, but verbal recognition is encouraged. Of course, when time allows, and you're able to meet in person, you can have that in-person presentation. However, that recognition goes a long way. One thing I've also seen and would encourage is if you're able to, once you announce the winners, allow them to have the floor for a little bit. Give them the opportunity to speak on behalf of the award and what it means to them. Then lastly, brothers, one program or one part of the program that could be included, especially in a virtual capability, it makes it a little easier, a historical slideshow. What does the chapter look like through the times? Not only pictures of brothers in the chapter, but we're talking facilities as well. There's a lot of chapters that have undergone renovations and brothers that may not have been in attendance in the last 10, 15 years might not have seen those. So keep in mind the demographic that you're working. Of course, brothers, when you create the program, it's important to rehearse it, and have the script ready to go as well as the program. Have a couple of dry runs and run-throughs, with the rest of your panelists and the brothers who are going to be a part of that. Share the program with attendees. Let them know that the traditions are ultimately being kept despite it being a virtual adaptation. And of course, as the MC or as the planner and the coordinator of the virtual pig dinner, try to stick to the script. Brothers, it could go haywire quick. So I encourage you to try to stick to the script as best as possible. Of course, you do risk not sticking to the script when you give brothers the floor, especially for awards. However, that just adds to the experience of pig dinner, especially in a virtual world. Utilize chapter artifacts and memorabilia. These might be pieces, brothers that brothers in attendance might not have seen for some time either. So if you have undergraduate brothers that are in different parts of the house, that have different memorabilia, showcase them. Brothers haven't seen them. It can help them reminisce. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, acknowledge key brothers and their contributions, especially donations. Again, like I said, brothers, verbal recognition goes a long way. If your chapter is creating a slideshow presentation, make sure it's prepared, before the program starts. Have the slideshow already presenting. And have conversation. I think that's the beauty of pig dinner, is being able to see those brothers actually see each other and interact with one another. Of course, the downside of having the regular Zoom call is you might have to mute when needed. So brothers, I do encourage you, if possible, to mute during the program, of course. But that's especially during the various speeches, recognition aspects, and the doxology, so on and so forth. Have brothers utilize the chat while they're muted. Of course, this will only help that fellowship and that engagement piece. But ultimately, brothers, that chat feature can be something that's kept from memorabilia. After the event is actually over. Be sure to record your event. It's great, brothers, when you can sit back, rewatch the recording and ultimately reminisce with your brothers, on this experience, this very crazy virtual experience that we've all had to put together and go through together. And one thing I do have to give a shout out to Western Ontario for this one, create a virtual house tour. For brothers that haven't seen the new facility or haven't been back for some time to see the facility itself, show them what the chapter is actually putting the money towards and the donations towards. And ultimately, brothers, it's a way to showcase the success of the chapter. So brothers, when we get to the platform and the recordings, of course, we've kind of seen some technological downfalls. I'm sure I froze for a little bit. So again, brothers, it's the 21st century, and that is the downside of Zoom, so that's why we do encourage the pre-recording as much as possible. If all the speakers can pre-record their messages, it's always a safe backup plan. By no means do you have to use those recordings, but of course, it's nice to have those just in case. Plan and prepare early. Brothers, early preparation is key to a successful event. That includes the slideshow. Have your slides ready. This shouldn't be a day of or day before type of task that you're putting together. But ultimately, the slideshow also doesn't need to be, too in-depth or too complicated. You don't need all the animations and things like that. Brothers just want to see each other at the end of the day, but they want to have a graphic that they're able to follow along the program with. The cadence of the program is also dictated, through that early planning. So those dry runs. Ultimately, brothers, the program should flow seamlessly. The slideshow content and the fluidity of the program really falls under that cadence. We've already touched on technological difficulties, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But lastly, the photo slideshow. If your chapter is putting together a slideshow of the chapter throughout history, start collecting those photos early. Again, that could be a tedious project for what could be a day of type of task. So earlier the planning, the better. And brothers, when it comes to presentation is key, of course. Good lighting and sound is important, to make sure that the attendees can actually hear the speaker. The one thing I've seen from the pig dinners I've been able to attend virtually is, utilize the spotlight or pitting the speaker when they are presenting. Brothers, that way everyone kind of has that large speaker screen, and it does pinpoint that one singular speaker, instead of seeing the many boxes all around the screen. But of course, I would also suggest that you do a practice run a few hours before the event or even the day before the event, just to make sure that all those logistic pieces are there, and the facilitators are able to plan accordingly. Again, brothers, stick to the script. It's easy for the plan and the program itself to really go off the rails, if you don't. So try to stick to it as best as possible. I do encourage you to allow a time for socializing, of course, and that won't necessarily be part of the script, but it is embedded into the program. Now, brothers, I kind of touched on this earlier, but the platform you utilize will dictate ultimately how brothers are going to be able to see each other, interact with each other, and ultimately view the presentation. Most pig dinners that I've attended are not in this webinar type format. It's in a regular Zoom call. And the reasoning for that is it allows that face-to-face interaction. It allows that, it allows brothers to really see each other and engage with each other, past what could be, 5 or 6 brothers running the presentation itself. Regardless of what platform you use, brothers, it's important to practice and be prepared. I do encourage you to utilize breakout rooms or a social hour before or after the event. I think most chapters that have hosted a virtual pig dinner find a lot of success with this, because again, the focus of the pig dinner is that reunion aspect, and brothers want to see each other. They want to engage with each other. If you utilize breakout rooms, whether that's for decades, pledge classes, whatever you think it fits for your chapter's needs, ultimately, brothers, there's an opportunity to let them interact with one another. Now, brothers, it is important during this, not just the social hour, but in the platform you use, Zoom is a public forum. There is the potential, especially as brothers are kind of in their home setting, for people who are not brothers, could hear what is said. There's not always the guarantee that the brother attending is wearing headphones. So keep in mind that, even if pledges are in attendance, esoteric knowledge and language, especially around the ritual and secret information, shouldn't be used. So just kind of a disclaimer there. Now, the role of the MC and the technology wizard, well, brothers, ultimately, they're going to keep the program running smoothly. Even if there is technological problems or glitches, they're both have co-hosting rights, so they'll be able to keep the presentation going, keep the program going. Of course, the MC will run the program and kind of control the cadence of it. The tech wizard will be more of a behind the scenes role, but he'll have oversight of the breakout rooms and control them and, ultimately dictate when they start and end. He'll monitor the chat itself, and ultimately, brothers, he'll keep the program running from behind the scenes and make sure that the technology aspect is taken care of. I can't emphasize this enough. Brothers, record your event. This is probably the most important piece, but also save the chat, when able to. This allows your chapter to really go back and reminisce. It's for the brothers that aren't able to attend. I know I have to give a shout out to my own chapter here. They shared the link of the recording afterwards, and a number of brothers who weren't able to attend went back and watched it. And, I think that, of course, it's not the same feeling as being in attendance, but, brothers, it's the thought and the principle that counts, of course. Lastly, there could be book-worthy phrases and thoughts that are expressed throughout the chat, throughout the duration of your event. So, just something to keep that adds value, to the chapter's event. And of course, brothers, there is the possibility of a hybrid model, combining both in-person and virtual. A lot of this does depend on CDC and local guidance. The fraternity itself does continue to suggest virtual adaptation and the following of all CDC and local guidelines. However, if your chapter is able to host some sort of hybrid model, I encourage you to utilize some sort of large screen and project the virtual attendees on that screen. have a camera that captures all the speeches and the program fluidly and allows brothers to really feel like they're part of the program in person. Of course, part of that also includes not forgetting about your virtual attendees and sharing that Zoom link early, making sure that they have it well ahead of time of the event. Have them RSVP so you have an idea of how many virtual attendees you're going to have as well. And during that RSVP, brothers, it could be a good idea to have them indicate whether they're going to be in attendance virtually or in person. So, brothers, with that being said, that kind of wraps up the best practices. So I'll turn it over to our panel to highlight some of their success stories. I'll kind of go round robin again as I see them on my screen. And Bob, we'll start with you.
All right, thanks, Dio. I guess the few key takeaways here are to get started. If you haven't started yet, start the process, start the planning. I'm setting up a meeting next week to plan for our November 2021 virtual PIG if we're not allowed to go back to the in-person PIG. So it does take a fair bit of effort to assemble the information, assemble a team. Don't try and have one person do it all. It's too much. Couple of takeaways, have multiple dry runs. I think we had to go through about 4 or 5 dry runs. We think we have all the technology in place and it's all perfect until you actually try and start executing it. Then you find out your dual screens, your dual audio, et cetera, it doesn't quite work the way you anticipated it would. Have a plan B, as Dio had suggested. Should things go awry, should you lose your communication, you've got to have a backup plan. And yeah, I think that's enough for me. We'll turn it over to the next panelist.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. Dana, we'll go to you.
All right, thanks, Dio. Yeah, brothers, Dio hit a lot of my points there, but and at the point, it sounded like a broken record for those of you who are old enough to know what a broken record is. Pre-recording, it really is key. You do not want to try any semblance whatsoever of synchronized singing. Trying to get people to sing the doxology or bringing in the pig across multiple time zones and different latencies there. And it's a recipe for disaster. So leave that part to the professionals there. They got pre-recorded doxologies and then all sorts of other MP3 files available on the website at phigam.org that Dio is going to show you later. So please utilize that. This is kind of specific to Zoom only. If you're going to use Zoom as your platform, if you have the pro plan, like I do, many others do, they typically have a 100 login limit per event. If you're anticipating more than 100 people for that, you're going to need to temporarily boost up the number to the next tier, basically. And so what I did was I got an annual pro plan with Zoom that gives me that 100, but for the month, the 30-day period that we had our PIG last April, I paid an extra, I don't know, 30, 40 bucks, whatever it was there, just for a 1-month boost to a 500 login limit capacity there. So do that as part of your planning. Like I said, it's kind of unique to Zoom, but yeah, just know how many, through that RSVP process, know how many attendees and logins you're going to have there so that you can not hit a ceiling that you weren't anticipating on. There's another thing we kind of learned in real time last year. If you're going to be announcing awardees, and this is probably more particular to the undergraduates, if you're, undergraduate brother of the year or nib of the year or whatever, our experience was that undergrads tend to have a watch party. So maybe got one login and 10, 15, higher number of brothers and maybe even some dates that are there with one login. So looking for brother X who just got an award and you don't see his name on the chat list there. That was a little weird there. We finally had to, he had to come in after the fact, 5 minutes after his slot there to go find him. So that was a good thing for your undergraduate guys in particular. Whoever's going to be getting awards there, somehow, some way, know whose login they're going to be participating in, if not under their own. So I got some other ones there, but I don't want to steal everybody else's under because they're probably going to raise the same points.
Perfect. Thank you, Dana. And brothers, before we move on to the rest of the panelists, I will continue encouraging you to utilize the Q&A feature. We will get to the Q&A session right after the success stories and the panelists share their experiences. So keep utilizing it for any questions that you may have, and we'll get to them in the order they're received. Brian, we'll go to you next.
Thank you, Dio. I just want to touch on something real quick that Dio brought up was communication with the grads. I know I worked with our graduation chair like months leading up to the pig dinner, and we had a weekly Zoom with the grads. And it was just a great way to stay in contact with the grads during this time. We could tell them over Zoom that we're planning the pig dinner and to let their classes know if anyone wasn't able to make it to the Zoom event. And just staying in contact with the grads, spreading by word of mouth, getting the email out early, and just making sure everyone's aware it's happening. And doing the grad Zooms just weekly was just a good way for our undergrads and new members to have a connection with the grad brothers before the pig dinner itself. So everyone wasn't meeting everyone for the first time, since during the pandemic, they can't really come and visit in town. Besides that, just have a game plan, stick to it, and don't be afraid to go off the game plan, because you got to adjust as things come to you. But besides that, just communication is key. Try to have Zoom events with the grads before the actual pig dinner and have some dry runs, have a game plan and stick to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Yatin, we'll go to you.
So one thing we were looking at with our pig was also fundraising, especially for our undergraduate chapter. A bit difficult given the pandemic. So what we did was we partnered with brothers who owned local restaurants and breweries, and allowed our attendees to make orders for dinner, since technically this is still pig dinner. And the undergraduates made deliveries there. So that way the undergraduates got a portion of tips and a portion of the profits too. So just a little help with fundraising there, and also brought that whole atmosphere of sharing a meal to the event.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bill, we'll go to you next. I believe you're still muted, brother. Bill, you may need to unmute on your phone.
Okay, how about now?
All good.
Can you all hear me?
Perfect.
All right. Sorry, brothers. A couple things. Dio, you did a great job in the presentation. Everybody, I'm not sure how much I can add other than who's ever chairing this thing, use your mute button, because you're liable to run into a guy like me that likes to talk, and he'll go on for hours. So I like the idea of pre-recording things. We did not do that last year. I did the Exiles Toast. I was having some technical problems at the time. We got through it, but it was real important. One of the things you may want to do, brothers, is especially some of your older grads may not be exactly technology wizards. And because of that, you may need to help them get set up and get them organized to be able to participate in the pig dinner. Remember, those are guys that got cash. Okay, so they can help out the chapter. The breakout rooms, we did that last year, and I think that was a huge success. We kind of did it by decades, but it was kind of nice because kind of pledge classes and guys got to get together, and they got to kind of bang it around. And like I said, we had 75, 80 guys at our dinner last year. The Chi graduate chapter is huge, and they're really involved. One of the things, if there's any way possible you can do any of the hybrid stuff and be able to have people in attendance, all the better. We're looking at, with the Chi guys, we're looking at setting up some sort of golf tournament / sort of casual pig dinner in September, following a virtual pig dinner this spring. And what we're trying to do is keep that interest up, because we don't want guys losing interest in the pig dinner. And Dio, you guys did such a great job. I'm done. And for brothers, you that don't know me, Dio's laughing because he knows I like to talk. So, back to you, Dio.
Dio, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Bill. Charlie, you want to round us out?
I'll do my best, but you guys took all the good stuff. So I'll give a quick story for what happened for ours, and this will help you guys understand that it's important to have a backup plan. So we had all of our videos recorded, everything was set to go, and we get to our keynote speaker who's got a 15-minute long speech, or however long it was. Halfway through, the video file's corrupted, shuts down right away, black screen for everyone on the call. Naturally, your heart sinks. We were lucky that our MC thought on the spot and said, well, do you think you could just ad lib the rest of your speech? And he was able to, thank God. But it made us realize, like, even if you have all these things planned, things can still go badly, or they can not go the way you expect them to. And that's okay, because someone who planned the dinner and put all this time into prepping, it felt like, oh God, that ruined the thing. But what I realized, and what we heard from grads who came back and told us how they felt, it was just the fact that they were able to experience that camaraderie for the first time in well over a year, being able to see their friends virtually or not, was just so impactful for them. So I think, if anything, I should say, things can go awry, but that's okay, because it's the fact that it's happening is what's going to mean the most to the brothers that are there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charlie. Now, brothers, before we move on to the Q&A, I do want to ask kind of a two-part question to all our panelists. And by no means are we going to go in a set order here. But what do you think was the biggest challenge that you faced during the planning or the execution of your pig dinner? And then second, what was the biggest success or highlight of your virtual pig dinner?
Can I kick that off, Dio?
By all means, Bob.
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge was actually getting the pre-recordings that people had agreed to do, to get them submitted and get them organized. Everybody agrees. Yeah, I'd be glad. You've got your house corporation president. You've got your, toast to the fraternity. Everybody agrees to do a recording and get it to you by a given date. And by the time that date rolls around, you've got, 1 out of 7 videos in your possession. And it really takes about 3 times as long to get those in as you had originally planned. And it's just because people are busy and they may not realize that, hey, once you get those, you need to actually organize them and tweak them and so on and so on. So again, just start early and try and keep prodding the people that agree to do the videos. As far as what went well, there were a few things on a couple of different pig dinners. One was we sent out RSVPs with the intent of only sending the Zoom link out to those that had actually responded. So we wouldn't go, require, 200 seats if there are only going to be 75 or 90 people attending and so on. That worked pretty well. I think that one of the big things was that worked really well was unmuting brothers beforehand so that we could have open chats. And then in the chat rooms afterwards, that worked really, really well. For people to move around, go visit, talk to other brothers from their, from their era, some of their colleagues, and then, 10 minutes later, they'd leave that room and go to another room and so on. And one more thing was the video of the house beforehand that was just rolling every so often was phenomenal. It was a really, really nice to get a sense of, hey, we're not there physically, but we're getting a sense that we are, because we're walking through the house or being walked through the house, and really good feel for starting the pig dinner off 10 minutes before the official start. So I'll leave it at that.
I got one kind of teed up here, Dia, if I could jump in terms of, what was most challenging for us, and actually what was our most success is actually the same story. But to really tell us, could you let me share my screen real quick here? This a better visual, if you could allow me to share. Okay, where'd you go? All right. So this here is basically how we did our kissing ritual there, our welcoming of the guest of honor. Did a little Google search, found this candidate for a roast pig. I made 2 versions of it. This is the newly initiated brothers version there, where it's kind of offset. And what we had to do, and the challenging part was getting both our oldest and our youngest brother to set this up as their virtual background. Had to introduce the old guy in particular to Zoom in general and virtual conferencing. And oh, by the way, click this, do that to, get your virtual thing. but it worked out. So these guys each set up when it was their time in the program, I'd unmute them. And yeah, the 18-year-old there, he set this as virtual background. He turned his head and there's a virtual pig's ass right there in his face. He kissed that. And Mike Griffith did the same thing on the snout end for that. So that was, like I said, both the challenge part to make that happen, especially for the old guy, but it worked and everybody had a great laugh at that little piece of it.
Dio, a couple things I think that happened on our end that I think were really positive. We really spent some time trying to get the younger grads who have, wherever they are, and we've tried to kind of draw them in for pig dinners. And actually, I think the virtual pig dinner last year was a positive thing for us because a lot of those younger grads who were hither and yon actually got involved. And I think that one of the things that will happen is those guys are going to be much more interested in coming back for a real pig dinner when we're able to do that, hopefully in either September and or May of next year. And I think that was a real positive stroke.
Thank you, Bill.
You bet.
So I think the best thing that worked for us was doing the grad relations, the Zoom meetings every week. It got all the grads used to Zoom and how things are going to run. It gave us, a few grads even stayed after every event to ask us about how the virtual pig dinner was going to work and guide me that one-on-one time to be able to talk to them about it and to get the information out to everyone quick. And I think I got to agree with Bob on the worst thing was making all the videos and getting them together on time and trying to work with everyone to get them together at least the day before. I remember someone sent me one of the videos that we got pre-recorded the day of, and I had to go in and throw it in and was stressing so much that day, but it all worked out great. Definitely got to stay on top of people and keep communicating and on time.
I can go next. I think one of our biggest challenges was just getting everybody familiar with Zoom, especially some of our older graduates who don't use technology that much. And we'd done a few practice calls earlier with our founding fathers because it was our 50th anniversary too. So they already had some experience. But one other solution we found was about 30 minutes before the pig officially began, we did a cocktail hour where everybody would just log on and resolve their technical issues in preparation for the event kicking off. One of our biggest successes, I think, was just seeing the amount of uptake from people who don't usually live in the city. So from people out of the country, in different time zones, just everybody logging in. And that actually boosted our attendance quite a bit more than what we were initially expecting.
Yeah, and I'll go next. So yeah, one of our, I guess, fallbacks was just trying to get Bob's video for invocation. He was a little tardy on that. I'm just kidding. It was I actually at the beginning of ours we had a bit of a mix up with having our MC have host privileges. It was just because a few grads logged on a little bit earlier. So I would say, have a time before for the MC to be able to log on and make sure that no one else is on at that time, so privileges can be handed over or just made. We used IHQ's Zoom account, that's why we ran into that issue. And then to just piggyback off of what's was just said, our success was being able to access brothers from around the world. And we actually had one brother who was in Taiwan and had been able to come to pig dinner for the first time in 10 years. And what we've been able to build off that and what we want to be able to do next year is see if we can, God willing, we're able to meet back in person, but when we can transition to having full pig dinners, having a hybrid virtual aspect, which allows them to kind of be on a Zoom call, maybe be in a breakout room with a specific table at pig dinner, and be able to watch the program and just chat with guys who are there. So I think this was a great opportunity for us to become aware of the opportunities that a virtual format in some sense for a pig dinner can give you.
Absolutely. Thank you, brothers. And of course, I think we can all agree there's a lot of negative and bad that's come about by COVID. But the beautiful side of it is it's created a lot of opportunity, like Charlie just alluded to, and ultimately, brothers, it could change what pig dinners really look like, from here on out, to encourage more brothers to be in attendance and allow them that opportunity to be in attendance if they're not able to. So, brothers, let's go ahead and move into some questions that we've received. The first one is regarding breakout rooms. So panelists, especially the ones that have utilized breakout rooms, has anyone utilized them? And if so, how do you go about setting them up and really using them to their full extent?
I can take on this one.
Yeah,
So we did ours by decade. So we were founded in the 60s. So we had a 60s/70s, then 80s, 90s, all the way through to 2010s. And that seemed to prove pretty effective. And we just allowed brothers to go in between them as much as they wanted. I think that was it made it feel a lot more organic. It felt like people could do what they wanted, but give some structure, as much at least as you can when you're letting the nuts run the state asylum, as it is when you have that many brothers on a Zoom call at once. So I think that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it was terrific, Charlie. You guys did a great job with that. I think one other thing that you did was you actually allowed people to unmute themselves and interject comments every now and again as appropriate. And hey, if it gets out of control and guys are, just yapping away, then fine, mute them all again and start over. But that didn't happen. People were actually very respectful. And when they felt compelled to interject with something, audibly, they'd unmute themselves and jump in and offer a comment and then quiet themselves, mute themselves again. But I think one of the questions there, Dio, maybe you can direct one. It was on how do you actually set up Zoom rooms? Where does somebody go to get, technology advice on how to set them up, on how to control them, and so on?
Yeah, well, I can sort of answer that. If you have to, I know you have to have a pro, at least on Zoom, you need to have that pro account. There's certain things you can do with the free account there, but you need to at least pay that $100 per year, or $15 a month, whatever it is there for that. So it's pretty straightforward. We tried it, and the software wasn't quite as robust as it is today. So we tried using the internal breakout rooms of Zoom. That was the current as of last April. That didn't work out so well. We actually set up individual Zoom ID numbers there, which was reasonably successful. Zoom has since upgraded their software, so it's much easier to set up those Zoom breakout rooms there. Like I was at the Western one that Charlie's just referring to there, and I was they're very, very easy to bop in and out between different rooms there and all that. So yeah, the stuff, the tools are there within Zoom, but like I said, you can't do the free one. You got to at least go to the pro level, if not higher.
And also to that end, Dana, just the version of Zoom is important because not all the functionality exists in older versions of Zoom. So we actually realized that quite late in the game and realized we better send out a link or a notice to people that said, look, we're encouraging you to upgrade your Zoom to the latest version. It's free. But if you're using whatever it was, I can't remember, version 4, you're not going to have this functionality. So you got to upgrade to version 5. Please, click on this link and proceed accordingly.
Good point.
And of course, brothers, a big part of if a chapter doesn't have that licensed account or the pro account, you can always utilize headquarters Zoom account, and basically to get that locked in. I know I was in talks with Charlie, to help set up Western Ontario's, at least given the platform access. Ultimately, brothers, you can contact me directly, and I'll have my contact information at the very end of the slide presentation. However, I will ask that you at least provide all the details, and I can set it up, within 5-10 minutes for you and have the access link ready for you to go. Suppose as we go into the next questions, this next one, unfortunately, panelists, I'll take this one only because it regards around keynote speakers. Basically, the question is, are IHQ or Archons available to speak as a keynote speaker? And would that count against the chapter if they use this year and would not be eligible for an in-person speaker from the fraternity? Both headquarters staff and Archons are available, yes. However, we have had discussions. this will not be a penalty by any means because it is virtual. It doesn't necessitate the cost that's usually associated with fraternity provided speakers. So this won't count as the chapter's in-person speaker. And of course, that is on a 2-year basis. So, brothers, if a chapter does want a speaker from the fraternity or an archon to speak at their event, there's already a few that have been lined up, for upcoming virtual pigs. So, just let me know, and I can get you in contact with the appropriate people. So, brothers, turning to the panel, is Zoom the best platform to use? Has anyone else had an experience with other platforms or utilize some?
I can take this. I've experimented with a few different platforms through work and then grad school for larger meetings. And I do think Zoom does have the best flexibility and the best quality when it comes to organizing a meeting as large as Pig Dinner. I don't know if anyone's got any experience with anything else, but I tried out Teams and GoTo meetings, and Zoom was still the best option amongst them.
I think I tend to agree with that. Part of the issue is not necessarily, having all the best features, the bells and whistles and so on. Part of the issue is making sure that your audience can, easily adapt and learn and download and so on. And Zoom is so, the use of it is so widespread. It's probably the most known application out there. And for some of the older grads or less technologically advanced like myself, that little bit of time up front before you get started with your Pig Dinner presentation to explain to people, where the buttons are on the screen, how you can actually see more brothers if you drag the video part or the view, the gallery view. Where do you control that, and how do you actually get as many participants on your screen as possible? Some folks need a little bit of help with that. So just to spend a minute up front and familiarizing people with the app itself. It's relatively straightforward to use. So, but it is a good, worthwhile use of a minute up front to get your graduates engaged, and maybe they'll uncover some brothers that they didn't know were there from their era, right? Because they're hidden off to the right or down below or something to that effect.
Thank you, Bob. That's a very good point. And brothers, once we show you the resources, I'll show you as well where the recording will be available for you all, once we wrap up the webinar tonight. Now, brothers, in your planning of the Pig Dinner, of course, we've discussed the opportunity, and what this presents to get some of those lost graduate brothers re-engaged. What kind of participation did you see from brothers that, didn't necessarily live in the immediate geographic area?
I'll jump in here again. We had phenomenal participation from around the world. We had people dial in from California, from Vancouver on the West Coast. We had people from Germany, Australia, the Middle East. It was truly an international affair, and it was just an opportunity. It was in the middle of the night in some countries. Didn't matter. Guys logged in for half an hour just to say hi, give a wave and a handshake, and they were off. But no, it was a really great platform and opportunity for people from around the world to reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. We had one guy from Australia. We had one guy from Japan. Our Exiles Toast was delivered live from Honolulu, and we have one guy from Nicaragua and a couple in the UK and Europe as well, in addition to all the several hundred we had here at CONUS. So yeah, that's one of the few good things to come out of this is everybody is Zoom experts now, and time zones don't matter anymore. So if you're willing to get up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning to hang with the brothers at a Saturday night Pig Dinner on the East Coast, that's a good thing.
I think, like I stated earlier, I think the key is we had young men who were recent grads that we haven't seen in a while, and they got involved, and we think that's great. And we're going to cultivate that for future years.
Absolutely. Thank you, brothers. Now, to kind of switch topics again and go back to breakout rooms for just a second. Brothers, for those that have utilized the breakout rooms, on the user side, how can one go from one chat room to the other? Can they just freely hop around? And if so, what does that really look like from the user end? if you could explain.
You see, for us specifically, I'm not the best person to answer this specifically. What we did was our university has been fully virtual for a year now, for the full school year. So our undergrads were the ones who knew how to do everything and explain it to everyone. So even if this panel doesn't necessarily have the answers, I would highly recommend speaking to brothers who are more literate when it comes to Zoom specifically on how breakout rooms work. That was how we were able to get the information sent out to grad brothers who might not know what to do.
Actually, I think it was done probably better, I think, at the Western Pig than at the Toronto Pig. I think at the Toronto Pig, you were randomly put in a chat room and didn't really have the ability to move around freely to another chat room. Whereas at Western, it was set up so that you could actually move and say, okay, I've had enough of this one. I'm leaving this one and joining another one. So again, I'm not technologically inclined, but it looks like it can be set up with various options in how that's controlled. And certainly for my preference, it's nice to have the control as an end user or pig dinner participant to freely come and go as I please.
And my experience there mirrors Bob's. The chat rooms, you have to set them up ahead of time. And I like the way the Western did theirs. 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s, by decade. But it was just very simple. You join chat room. You click on that button, and you have a menu selection there. You click on the one you want to go to. You're in, and then when you're done with that one there, you say leave room, and you go back to the main the main room, if you will, and you can go select another sub room there. You can do that as many times as you want there, and is about as intuitive as you can get. So that's very, very old grad friendly, in my opinion.
Perfect. Brothers, kind of sticking on the same topic, in those breakout rooms, did you guys give them certain discussion prompts to facilitate conversation, or was it sort of a free, speak freely type of breakout room?
As far as I know, it was just a freebie. You go, just see familiar people and away you go. And it didn't take much.
That might actually help.
If I
The idea of going by decades was a good reason. Then you had like with like, you had brothers who had shared memories already, and that would get the ball rolling. And then as soon as, say, a pledge brother or a younger brother came in, they would have someone new to talk about. Something as simple as having a common hometown could spark a conversation. So no, I think there's a way to make it more likely to have organic conversation. And I think that comes from putting like with like, but at the same time, it doesn't take long. Eventually someone starts talking about something and it just starts rolling.
Dio, did you want to go on to the next one? You're back on mute there.
Bill, did you have some thoughts before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I did. We had talked about doing prompts. I was having a little technical problem. Forgive me. I'm one of those old guys that needs help. We were going to do prompts last year when we went into groups, and I got to tell you, it was like, the conversation just took off. I wouldn't worry about prompts. I just say, because those guys are glad to see each other. It's an opportunity for them to chat. It's all about those relationships, and hell, you don't need anything. They're going to be there, and it's going to happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. Now, brothers, how long did your pig dinner last? And how much time did you set aside for breakout rooms or social time?
I can start. So we scheduled pig dinner to be 1 hour because we knew the social aspect was like what appealed to a lot of people. So we wanted to get them into breakout rooms as quickly as possible too. Of course, we allotted 1 hour, went for an hour and a half. Afterwards, given the nature of the breakout rooms, we just let them pretty much run for as long as they wanted to. Once the MC was on for about 2-3 hours monitoring the breakout rooms, and once he had to log off, he just transferred over authority for the Zoom meeting to whoever was still left in the breakout rooms. Like towards the end, they all got merged into one giant room anyway. So we pretty much ran the breakout rooms all as long as we could, essentially.
Our dinner lasted about an hour 45. I think there were conversations that went on for a while, but pretty much about an hour 45, we were done.
Generally, they've been about the same, about an hour and a half for the formal program, approximately, and then the chat rooms went on for hours after that. So,
Yeah, Glenn, I was same experience there. I think we budgeted an hour, we got it done in about an hour 10, and then yeah, we had just at least 2 hours worth of chat rooms afterwards there, just an unstructured free for all kind of thing there by decade, and yeah, it was very successful.
Personally, it was about an hour or two for the beta new chapter. We gave everyone about 30 minutes when we opened the Zoom link to trickle in and talk before we actually started the event. And then after that, we stayed on for maybe another 45 minutes to an hour as conversations just led once we got done with the actual event.
Perfect. Brothers, what experiences have people had with incorporating a shared meal in Virtual Pig? Are brothers just eating their own meal at home? Or has anyone utilized a delivery service to deliver the same dinner to everyone? Or if you haven't, what are your thoughts on something?
We did something with this in our pig. So as I mentioned earlier, we organized with two brothers and their families, one who ran a restaurant and one who ran a brewery. And essentially they coordinated to make a singular order form, which we sent out to all the brothers attending pig. And if they wanted to, they could fill that out and send it back. And then the two, the restaurant and the brewery coordinated getting orders dropped off together. And all orders went to the restaurant from the brewery, and that was the central location for pickup. The undergraduates went picked up, ran a delivery service, got the food and the drinks to the brothers who made orders. And it also worked as a kind of fundraising event for the undergraduates because they got to keep any tips they made and they got a portion of the profits. So that's how we kind of incorporated meals. A lot of people didn't eat on screen though, just so you're aware, because it's kind of a little messy. Most people just ate before joining the call.
Anecdotally, I can share that the Gamma Kappa chapter at Colorado School of Mines, they have what they had billed as a pig dinner in a box. I know it exists. I don't know what exactly is in it, but it was like some sort of, it's almost like the an Omaha Steaks equivalent kind of thing where you got, quality meat delivered. So it was like, pre-wrapped, a nice cut of pork, some sort of a pork cut with some other vegetables. Basically, it's a nice pork meal in a kit that had some sort of branding, for Gamma Kappa or however they did it there. Like I did not participate, but I know it exists. But that was their plan. So everybody can, I don't know if they're going to eat in front of each other or just everybody share the same meal and then dial into Zoom. I don't know what their plan is, but I do know that the Mines guys are doing some sort of pay your pig dinner fee, but rather than having a dinner with your brothers in person, you're going to have your dinner in your own kitchen and get together by Zoom.
Perfect. And brothers, last but not least, and Gatton, I know you kind of touched on this in your answer, but what did the incorporation of fundraising look like for your virtual program? Was it on the technology side of things? Was it just showing a link and brothers could click the link and donate? I know, Charlie, your chapter did something similar as well. So I'd love to hear y'all's experiences.
Yeah, so we were fortunate. This year, I think we were able to put on a bit more of a structured presentation. Our longtime MC made the joke. He's like, this is the first time an MC hasn't been interrupted at a Western pig dinner in decades. But what was good about that was we were able to have a very structured presentation of a few different clubs that we offer, and all the money that is generated is donated back to the chapters so it can be used specifically for getting new ritual equipment, updating the house in certain ways. And it worked out fantastically. We raised $5,000 over the course of the night in pledges alone. And now it's fantastic because now our chapter house finally has a table that cabinet can meet at, and they no longer have to meet at a pool table, which is fantastic. So on top of that, we also did a pig's head auction, and that raised another $1,000. What we did was we ran it through our own chapter's grad website, which didn't work quite as well because since we had so many brothers go on at once, we crashed the site. So maybe don't do live auctions if you're using a third-party website or a website that you run, because you might not have the bandwidth for it. So a link would almost be better if you say ahead of time, instead of contributions for our ticket for pig dinner this year, consider donating to one of a few different causes. So I think that's the best course of action there.
Yeah, I think that's a bonus, Charlie. I was about to mention that in our invitations and access to the pig dinner link, we also sent out a link for donations saying, here's the pig dinner, here's the link if you choose to donate in lieu of your regular pig dinner expenses, etc. So it was in multiple spots in the email invitation that went out, and advertised at the pig dinner as well in the pig's head auction.
I think the Chi chapter has an extremely strong grad chapter president, and Otto pretty much at the end of the dinner put the bite on everybody. And if you've got a grad that's somebody will all respond to, have them put the bite on everybody. And we generated a good bit of money for the grad chapter and for some events coming up. So.
Perfect. Well, thank you, brothers. As we kind of start to close out, actually, I lied. We got one more question before we move on. Charlie, do you want to elaborate what's a pig's head auction?
Right. So every year, what we do is at the end of the dinner and everything's kind of dying down, in person, we would take the cooked pig, we would take the head and we would auction it off to brothers with our MC kind of just basically giving people the push, like, come on, like, you just got, it's like, you're a lawyer, you've got the money, that kind of stuff. And all the money that was raised, because eventually it doesn't just go to one person, eventually everyone just brings the money over. And that money is then put back into the house or into other things that we can offer for brothers. And so what we did this year specifically was, if you go onto the Ontario Fiji Network's website, which is the one that's run by the grad chapter of the province, we had a page there where brothers could donate via the decade that they graduated in. The idea was we would be able to do exactly what we would do in person. But the hiccup that I said we ran into was we had too many brothers on at once. So as much as we wanted to keep it similar to the auction, we couldn't. We had to leave the link open for longer. It still worked out just as well. But that's how we run our auction every year.
A little bit of friendly competition. If it's in person, you pit table against table and try and get all the brothers to rally about, and then pit groups of tables against other groups of tables and so on. And for the online one, as Charlie said, it was kind of decade by decade, rally your decade brothers together to see who's going to take the lead in pig head auction donations. But generally we've raised about $1,000, $1,200 by auctioning the pig's head, and that would be with an attendance of anywhere from 80 to 120 brothers in attendance. So and all the money goes back to the chapter for whatever is needed most by the chapter.
That's incredible. Thank you, brothers. I suppose as we start to close out, I'd like to show you all a few resources that are available to you. One of the questions we received was regarding virtual pig dinners that have been recorded. I know a number of the brothers that are serving as panelists have recorded their pig dinners. So I'll be compiling a resource, like a virtual database of sorts, to be able to share with attendees and brothers as they start to plan their pig dinners. Bros, if you give me just 1 second, I'll actually show you exactly where some of these resources are kept on the website.
And while I was doing that, I just want a quick mention, getting back to the dinner in a box, I'm making a note here. I'm going to reach out to Hazelton and Jay Wickelhake there, the guys with the details on the section chiefs out there. So I'll feed that information to Dio. He'll post it here on the resource page there. So if anybody else is interested in pig dinner in a box here, you'll have a exemplar of what Minds chapter did.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Dana. Now, brother, some of the resources that are available to you if you frequent, or even if you don't frequent the phygam.org website, this is the starting screen. If you just scroll down and click the COVID-19 guidance, it'll take you to this page over here. Now, this page does have a whole section specific to pig dinners and other graduate brother events. It'll help provide a further outline on how to plan, as well as directly to the virtual pig dinner and events guide that's been created. However, on the main page again, if you click on either undergraduates or graduates, and then click on pig dinner to the right-hand side, it'll take you to this pig dinner page itself. Under planning, of course, there is the headquarters planning guide for in-person events. We've also added the virtual pig dinner and events guide, which will help you create a blueprint for how to ultimately host a successful virtual pig dinner. And then as far as pig dinner recordings, brothers, if you go on the Phi Gamma Delta, on Phi Gamma headquarters YouTube page, there's actually a recording from last Giving Day, which was adapted to a day of brotherhood on May 1st. The fraternity actually hosted a virtual pig dinner. So if you just scroll down, it could be found right here. It's also found on the fraternity's Facebook page. So if you scroll through some of the videos that are there, there's a number of resources that are already available for you and able to be viewed and shared. And brothers, we do also have templates that have been created. I know Dana has a pretty good one, as well as some other chapter recordings that I'll be able to help compile for you, and ultimately share with you once contacted, about those resources.
And I would highly recommend that. It can save you a tremendous amount of time and energy in trying to create something from scratch. Some of these presentations have been templated very nicely. You change the chapter name, but as far as embedding audio in your PowerPoint slides or, using some other formats and so on, can save you a tremendous amount of time and energy and tweak them to your heart's content, but at least it gives you a very nice starting point.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, no pride in ownership. Please plagiarize me and Bob and Charlie, all the other doers there that put these pig dinners together. Please steal what you need to steal there. Just make sure you change that chapter name from whatever we started with to whatever yours is there. Otherwise, you'll be in pretty good shape.
Now, brothers, if you all need any sort of assistance with virtual pig dinner planning, have any further questions, or would like to get connected to any of our panelists, please feel free to contact me directly. I'd be more than happy to connect you with these brothers individually, so they can share their further experiences with you. If you also want access to any of the templates, recordings, or any other resource that's been mentioned in tonight's webinar, please feel free to contact me. I do want to take a moment to thank our panelists for taking the time to be with us and sharing their experiences and knowledge. As well as you all, the brothers in attendance for tonight's webinar. On the horizon, brothers, we'll be hosting more events that are applicable to COVID adaptation. So of course, just be on the lookout for further webinars, as headquarters staff continues to flesh out what those may look like. Perfect. Well, brothers, any final thoughts from our panelists?
One, mighty proud to be a Fiji. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Bill.
And great job, Dio. Thank you so much for organizing this. This is great.
Indeed.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having us,
brothers. Awesome. Well, brothers, again, I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. And again, I want to give one more thank you to our panelists. But this concludes our webinar for tonight on how to host a virtual pig dinner. If you all need anything, please feel free to contact me. and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, brothers.
All right. Everyone have a good night.
Good night.